You're watching Universal Groove, and I'm Bobby Vargas. I grew up in Hawaiian Gardens, California, which is in LA County. And Hawaiian Gardens is kind of ironic. It's kind of oxymoron because it's called Hawaiian Gardens, but it was anything but a Hawaiian garden. You know, there was gang violence, and there was drugs, and helicopters flying over your house every night. You know, just not really sure what was going to happen on a day-to-day basis. And so just a crazy neighborhood and a crazy place to grow up in. Growing up in Hawaiian Gardens, it definitely had its challenges. Probably the most challenging thing is because it's basically a barrio. So if you went to go and hang out at a friend's house and it was starting to get late and you kind of lived far away, like I rode my skateboard everywhere. So when I was heading back home, it wasn't like I was taking my time to get home. I was like, I needed to get home like immediately because, I could get jumped or my board could get stolen or just about anything could take place. And so it was kind of scary. You never really knew what was going to happen. You couldn't, if you went to in those days, we used to go to the liquor store to play video games. The liquor stores had games, actual coin games. And so we'd go there, we'd buy candy, we'd play video games. But you couldn't leave your bike outside of the liquor store because your bike would get jacked. And so, of course, I learned the hard way many times. My brother's scooter got stolen one time. Brand new, he had a brand new scooter, and I borrowed it and it got stolen. And I think he still remembers that today. But anyways, the blessing of living in the garden. See, I lived right on Pioneer Boulevard, right across the street from the community center. And my house literally faced the 605 freeway. It's my grandpa, Mingo, he worked for Caltrans. So sometimes he would stop right on the 605 right at my house and he would scream, "Mijo!" And I'd come out and he'd have a bike that he found on the freeway. He's like, "Here, Mijo, here's a bike," But the cool part also was that if I crossed the street, there was a 605 freeway. There was actually a tunnel that went under the 605 freeway, and underneath that tunnel, if you took it led you to El Dorado Park. And so growing up in the gardens with a whole bunch of my buddies, we were kind of like that movie Stand By Me. We would sometimes, go under that tunnel, and you had to kind of bend down. It was on 3.5 feet tall. We had to bend down, and then we'd get to the middle of the freeway and there'd be an opening, and we could stand up for a second and breathe, and then we'd bend back down again, and then we'd keep on going across the 605. Then when we get to the other side, there was all this water and and there was a cut fence, and we kind of squeezed through with our fishing poles, and then we'd get to go fishing at El Dorado Park. And so that was kind of a blessing, having that, finding some glimpse of fun and adventure in the middle of a dark place, where there's gang violence and all that. Maybe that's just the curiosity or innocence of being a kid. One of the things that kind of helped me break away from that was skateboarding. And I remember the first time my mom took us to Santa Fe Springs swap meet, and they had these ninja boards. In the 80s, there was a time where it was all about ninjas and Bruce Lee and Kung Fu and all these martial arts. So she bought us, me and my brother, these martial art boards. They had a guy doing a karate kick on it. And so we brought that home and we started riding it and everything. And we realized right away that they were cheapy boards. The wheels started deteriorating, if you went too fast. And the wheels were like butterfly. It was yellow and red wheels, they painted half of it yellow, half of it red. And then when you rode on it, it had a crazy design as it went. But you couldn't really do anything on them because if you added water, the board would melt, or if you went too fast, the wheels would deteriorate. They were cheapy, man. And so, but I remember the very first time one of my buddies showed up, and he had a vision board, and and it wasn't like a ninja board, man. It was like a professional skateboard, man. It had great wheels, strong trucks, and I remember at that moment I was like, man, I want to do that. I want a good skateboard because I really want to start skating.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
My mom bought me my very first professional skateboard, and it was a Steve Caballero. It was red, and it had a big dragon on it. And this was really a game changer. You know, skateboarding was kind of fresh to us. You know, they had it in the 70s, but in the 80s it started really building momentum. But the only thing is that the pro boards were really expensive. And so I remember my mom having to buy it even in parts. So she bought me like the board, the grip tape, and like the trucks, you know, and then I had to wait like a week or two, and then she got me like the fancy, you know, wheels and bearings, and then back then we had like these rails on the side. And so I remember just anticipating like, man, I'm gonna put this thing together. And once I had it all put together, that's all I wanted to do was skate, man. And everyone was building ramps, and we were looking for ditches to ride in, and jumping off of stuff, and jumping off curbs and stairs, and it went gangbusters, man. It was fun. We had a lot of fun. Well, my dad growing up, man, he was like the smooth cat. You know, he was like the original Fonzie. And you know, he was a good-looking guy. You know, he had charm. He always knew what to say at the right time. And you know, I know tons of girls liked my dad when he was growing up. I mean, obviously, he somehow swept my mom off her feet. You know, my mom was beautiful, and so somehow my dad was able to talk his way into that relationship. And so, but he had a smoothness about him, man. And if you got to know him, he was really laid back. It didn't seem like anything kind of fazed him. He was quick with his words. You know, you throw something at him and he'd throw it right back at you as quick as you threw it at him. And he was also like a comedian, so he'd make you laugh all the time. And I love him for that. I love my dad for that. My mom is Tex-Mex. You know, her family is mainly from Texas. And surprisingly, her and my dad actually met at a party in Lakewood, California. And so that's how they met for the first time. I don't know how my dad approached her or how all that happened. I just know that they met at a party. And so it was at that moment that they, you know, decided that they were going to make something of the relationship. And so, but, you know, interestingly enough, like my mom, she already had a daughter, and my dad, he already had 2 daughters. And so then they got together and, you know, formed a family and had my brother and I. So we were kind of like the original Brady Bunch family. And so we were all kind of jammed together and living under one house. But we never looked at each other as different or half sister or half brother or half anything. In those days, your family was your family. And, you know, as long as you were in the same house and you grew up together, that was your family. And so we made the best out of this situation, and we all grew up together. Music played a big role growing up in our family. Every gathering, every party, every reunion, you know, there were vinyl records everywhere. There was Peaches and Herb, there was War, you know, and so they had like the big setup, you know, it's like a piece of furniture, and it had like, you know, you could play vinyl records on it, had the little adapter, you could put it in the middle, play 45s. Then it had the little 8-track deal, you could put 8-track tapes in there. It was like AM, FM radio. And then on the front cover of it, it had like these crazy disco lights to play like Donna Summer. And so that was like your party, man. It was like, turn that thing on, crank it. And so music, man, and dancing was popping off, you know, aunts and uncles, and of course a lot of drinking and partying growing up. And so that was kind of our introduction, I think, to music, you know, and celebration as a kid. Father, he had this off-road vehicle. It was a Blazer. It was called the Claw, and and all of my uncles, they all had like Land Cruisers and Jeeps and off-roading vehicles, ATCs and stuff. We all kind of went through this off-roading phase, where we would go up in the mountains, head up to Gorman or Sousa Canyon or whatever, and they had like CB radios, you know, Roger Dodger, you know, come in, over and out. And so we were all small kids, man, climbing up these crazy hills, praying up the hill the entire time. And some of the kids were crying because they were scared, and they didn't care, man. It was a lot of fun. You know, he loved that Blazer, man. And so it's great. I think the moment that changed my father's life, and I would say changed our whole family's life, is that, you know, the very thing he loved, which was that Blazer, was actually the thing that hurt him really bad. You know, my dad got in a horrible car accident with that Blazer, and not a car accident that you would think, you know, when we say car accident, we think, you know, another car flipping over or hitting. No, he was working on the Blazer, and it was parked on these ramps in our front yard, and he was underneath it, and I think he removed like the drive shaft or something, and something that would release the brake, and then the whole Blazer started to roll down off those ramps. And my dad tried to roll out of the way, and he rolled right into the path of the tires. And so ran over his leg, it crushed like 6 of his ribs, crushed his pelvis bone, the whole off-road vehicle. And it had huge tires, man. The whole vehicle was literally on top of my dad. And so my brother and I, we were at the corner at the liquor store playing video games and eating candy. And when we were walking home, we saw fire engines going by, ambulances, police cars. We were thinking, oh, well, we live in Hawaiian Gardens. It's kind of normal, you know. But as we got closer to our house, we realized that they were actually going to our house. And so you can imagine when us small kids walked up to the house, you know, we walked into like a freak show. You know, our dad was being taken away on a stretcher, and we didn't know what was happening. Everybody was crying. My mom was hysterical. I mean, it was crazy, man. It changed everything. At that moment, life changed for us as a family. So we're all at the hospital, and every single family member is there. You know, even family members that live far away and stuff. Everyone is there, and I just realized as a kid, you know, how important family is, and how much they love my dad, and so everybody's huddled around, you know, his bed or waiting outside the waiting room. You know, they think they're going to lose their brother, and early on. And so everyone's getting together, everybody's praying, everybody's kind of joining in, encouraging each other, there for each other, and just kind of locking arms with one another. And, you know, we're going to get through this together as a family. And so at that moment, when we eventually went home, I remember with my mom praying every single night for my dad's healing, for my dad's miraculous healing, that he would not die, that he would live, that he would go forward, that, you know, God would give him a second chance at life. And that right there taught me a lot as a kid, that there's someone greater than yourself. You know, there's somewhere you could turn to no matter what's happening in life. You know, you got somewhere where you could turn to. Praying with my mother during that time, that uncertain time in my life, kind of just gave a glimpse of hope, you know. And I think that would be something that would always be there and remind me of something. It's almost like a bookmark in a book. You know, you kind of put the bookmark there, you save your place, and so that kind of sparked something early on that, you know, obviously I wasn't going to be, you know, not believe in God. There was obviously a God out there, and so to me that was very encouraging and peaceful, because it was very calming at home, praying with my mom, you know, holding my mom's hand and laying in her bed and praying for my dad, and also it's like my mom taught me how to pray, It was like, what's praying? Just talk to the Creator. And so that was really interesting, because I think I could trace that. I could always turn back to that memory even today. So after all the praying, my dad did pull through from that traumatic accident, and really it was a miracle, because he wasn't supposed to live. And so he ended up in a full body cast, and they brought home a special bed. And over the years of training and rehabilitating, one thing about my dad is he's very determined. And he was like, I'm going to get back on my feet, And within a few years, little by little, he started walking, getting better and better. And, later on, you couldn't even tell that he was in any kind of accident like that. Of course, he had like a Frankenstein shoe that kind of like was a little bit bigger, because it's like, I don't know if his legs didn't grow right or something. And I guess that's kind of a funny memory. But yeah, he pulled through, man. He made it through. My dad's all healed up now, but it changes everything, because whereas before you had two parents working all the time, there's that constant income. But now my dad can't work because he's disabled. My mom has to take care of my dad, so she can't really work. So we have a whole bunch of years where we're just kind of surviving. We're almost like just kind of drifting back and forth. And so we moved around a lot. We didn't stay in a house for a very long time. It was like, we'd live somewhere for a year, and then we moved somewhere. We went somewhere for a year, we moved somewhere. And I was like in and out of school. And unfortunately, this was like in high school. So this really kind of it made it challenging to even graduate from high school. So moving around so much, I was in and out of multiple high schools. I think probably 4 or 5 different high schools, when you're really only supposed to go to one for all those years. And so being the brand new kid on the block, and having to make friends, and trying to reconnect, I learned how to make friends right away. But that's probably the positive. But the negative, it was hard to say goodbye. And so I remember over time, I kind of got calloused. And when we would leave, we move out and move to another location and leave school. I remember I got to a point where I didn't even tell anyone bye. I just, like, one moment I was at school, the next day I wasn't there, and I was gone. Not saying goodbye is, trying to avoid the pain, because, you spent that whole year investing in friends, and maybe I had a girlfriend or something, or I got real close to a bud, and we skated together, we hung out together. But having to say goodbye, it's just hard. And so the easiest way to avoid the pain was to just disappear. I think a lot of people today, that's how they avoid pain. They just disappear, and they don't have to deal with it. But eventually you do have to deal with it. When you grow up, you have to deal with that pain. Having to deal with that pain, I was looking at different things to numb that pain. And so I turned to skateboarding, and just skated hard and was on it every single day. Of course, that was during the times where we were experimenting with drugs and the party scene. So turning to that lifestyle was kind of like a numbing agent to try to avoid pain. But, there was years of pain that had been kind of building up through my dad's injury and through moving around a bunch and, having to deal with being a teenager and dealing with all that kind of stuff. So that was how I numbed it. That's how I kind of got away from everything, was to kind of use that as a coping mechanism. So in high school, I was attracted to the people that were kind of like, the rockers and the skaters and the partiers and kind of the outcasts. They were always the ones at lunchtime that kind of were in a corner somewhere and like had a bunch of earrings and colored hair and ripped jeans and all that. And so I always kind of ended up in that group. It was like a magnet. So I ended up in that group. And so, of course, that took me into the party scene more, because, I knew how to look for those types of people wherever I went. And so that kind of grouped me into like a crew or a group of people. In high school, I veered toward the rebels, and the rebels, they kind of have the leather jackets and the jeans and the Harley Davidson this, and so I think I was drawn to them because they kind of had that I don't care about life attitude, and so the automatic thing was to kind of go in that direction. We wanted to be James Dean. We wanted to look like Elvis Presley. We wanted to, look like Marlon Brando. Like, we were literally trying to be a rebel without a cause. I think I had always been kind of a rebel without a cause inside, and I think the outside was starting to catch up with the inside. Yeah, so in high school, there was a guy that reached out to me. His name's Leo. It's kind of funny because not that we meant it to be that way, but my middle son's name is Leo also. But yeah, Leo kind of reached out to me and kind of brought me into their group. And they were all rebels, and they were a part of a crew. The crew was called the Drifters. And so we all wore our leather jackets. We all had our name on the back, and we were had through these club type, rave type parties, and really we're just trying to make a name for ourselves, and just trying to, I don't know, we're rebelling against the system, I guess, using house music and techno music to do it. I don't know if we were starting a revolutionary or not, but we just love to dance and hang out with each other. It's kind of like a brotherhood for a while. And we drifted, from house to house and from party to party. So hence the term, drifters. Well, Leo, he was straight out of a movie. He could have been the Hispanic version of James Dean. He kind of had that look about him, but he was kind of soft-spoken too, and he was super friendly too at the same time. But then he had like this toughness about him, and this kind of like welcoming about him as well. And he ended up being one of my best buds, and we're still friends even today. But if it weren't for him, I don't know that I would have been accepted into that group of friends that I hung out with for so many years. And so, yeah, man, he was just like, he just had that look. He had the perfect sideburns, the perfect hair, the perfect leather jacket, the perfect shoes, good-looking dude. Everybody loved him. That was my friend. Well, being a rebel, it took some commitment, because you couldn't just like walk into this style. It took hard work. You had to have the right jacket and the right jeans. We went to all these different thrift stores. I felt like we were at thrift stores like almost every other day, trying to find the perfect button-up shirt and the perfect pants and the perfect jeans. And it couldn't be too new, but they had just, man, it was a lot of commitment, man. It was a lot of work to put on that facade, to wear that outfit, to look the part, have the right haircut. We had a guy that was in our drifter crew that it was kind of ironic that he was he took hair classes or something, and so he did all our haircuts for us, man. And so we all had pompadours, and well, I could never get sideburns, but most of my friends have. I think I just let this grow down long, and I just kind of like made it look like a sideburn. But that was kind of what we did to belong. With the Drifters, we were outcasts, and what we loved to do was like lock arms with other similar type crews. There was another crew, they were called the Stray Cats. That's kind of funny because they were like rebels also. But we would find other people kind of like-minded in that way, and kind of like team up in order to throw these venues. And we were trying to make money. I don't know that we were always successful there though. I don't remember making any money. I think we spent more money than we make anything. But we made friends, and we found stuff to do. And so that's basically what we did for many years. In order to have a good turnout on your venue, you had to have a good flyer. And, remember, this is like, the internet's just barely going. There's not a lot of stuff. So to produce a full-colored graphic, that was quality, that was on quality paper, that looked great, I don't even know how we cut and pasted stuff back then, but we found people to do it for us, and a lot of the print shops would do it also, and then it had to be like a really glossy hard stock. So when you get the flyer, you can even smell it. You're like, man, this smells like a good quality flyer. It's not like a piece of paper, like a copy of something. It's like full color, full graphic. In the Drifters, some of the DJs, what they were playing during that time was, it was a little bit of techno, but techno was starting to change, and it started to go into trance, but then it totally was taken over by house music. And so we had like Miranda, we had like Robin S, and groups like that were becoming super popular, and they were even getting a lot of radio play. And so house music was more laid back, I guess, and easier to dance to, not as fast paced as some of the harder, more progressive trance or techno music. So things started to change from there. So what started happening with the Drifters, and I think this happened with a lot of party crews in the 90s, is that because they weren't really a gang or anything, they were more about having parties. And so what happened is, with the popularity of a crew, then you have other gangs that want to test your crew. And so what was happening with a lot of party crews is they were becoming gangs, because they were gangs were testing them, and then they were retaliating. They were going back and forth. And this happened, the same thing happened to the tagging crews also. They ended up becoming tag bangers in the 90s. And so that kind of was starting to come towards us. And we started to get like little enemies, and maybe, I don't know, maybe they were maybe someone's girlfriend got stolen or taken from a person. I don't know how it started, but I do know that it started to lean toward that, and I don't want to be a part of that. What kind of drifted me a little bit away from the Drifters was hanging out with my cousins. And I had a cousin, he was in a DJ crew at the time, and so I would go to his, whatever venue he was spinning at, I would usually follow him. And so I remember they were DJing a party on a Saturday night, and so I was gonna have to stay the night at his house. And so my aunt and my uncle, his mom and dad, they have a rule that if you stay the night at their house on a Saturday night, you have to go to church with them on a Sunday morning. And so I had to follow that rule, and I had to go to church with them that Sunday morning. So I remember, waking up that morning and having going to church with him. I didn't have anything even to wear. So I'm like scrambling through his wardrobe, trying to put two things together that I would wear, and wearing some like weird button-up shirt, and don't quite fit me right, and oh well, pants are a little too stonewashed for me or something. And so but I remember going and sitting there for the very first time, and I just remember the pastor just opening the Bible, and not even like really preaching it, just he opened it up and he just started teaching. He just shared a little scripture, and it just explained a little bit what it meant and how it applied to our life. And I thought, man, this is really cool, to hear the Bible like this. I didn't know it could be like this at all. As he's sharing the scriptures for the very first time in my life, it's like kind of a pinnacle time. I'm realizing that what he's saying is true of me, that we're all lost for a time. And the only way to be found is by giving our life to Jesus. And so it was kind of like, spending the majority of your life chasing something or searching for something and trying to find in all these various things. And then all of a sudden, one guy kind of cracks open the Word, and it's found right smack there in the middle of a Bible page. And so it was like a magnet, because, even though I had to go there because of the family rule, I remember the very next Sunday I woke up and I was like, man, I got to get back over there. And so I jumped into my little Datsun B210 that we called Betsy, You couldn't go faster than 55 miles an hour on the freeway because, you know, she would start to veer to the left or to the right. And so I remember jumping in Betsy, man, and heading off to church that Sunday. And then the next Sunday came, and I just kept going back. I never stopped, you know, but I didn't realize it over time. If you keep reading the Bible, like, the Bible's going to change your life and change it in a positive way. And so that's, for me, that's when God really started to change my life. Yeah, so I find myself coming back every single week and finding a place that I belong, you know, and that this person's elderly, this person's middle-aged, you know, this person's young, and they're not perfect in any way, but it really starts to feel like a real family. And so I'm kind of returning back to where I need to be. You know, maybe it was that little glimpse early on in my childhood, you know, that there is something bigger than me. That maybe everything in life had to go full circle to bring me to this surrender point in my life. And so moment by moment, I'm changing. My life is changing. I'm feeling, for the very first time, I'm experiencing peace. You know, I don't feel like I have to be someone else. I don't feel like I have to wear a jacket, or I have to act this way or act this way, or, you know, hide my pain. I could just lay it all out and be who God created me to be. So the beauty of the church was that various churches were having these venues to bring in like young people like me, and these venues would have like punk bands, ska bands, reggae bands, you know, hip hop. And so I found myself like going from venue to venue and then starting to really connect with the music. And so one of the bands that really grabbed me at that time was the Orange County Supertones. And you know, they had like brass and trombones and trumpets, and they were really quality, man. They were a quality band, but it wasn't just like music, blind music with no meaning. Every single song had substance, and it connected with me, man. And it was a beautiful thing. I went to so many shows back then, so many concerts, and I could tell you my life was changing big time. A moment that really changed me was I was at a gig, at a concert, and they gave this elaborate set, man. It's like spot on. They sounded great, and then after they were done, you know, the drummer, like not even like the lead singer, like the drummer came from behind his kit and came all the way up to the front. And he opened up his Bible, man, and he just started giving like a Bible study. Like he shared a little verse, and then he expounded on it, and then he gave like a gospel presentation. And I was like, whoa, you know, I was like, you could be in a band and play music, and then you could like come out and like, you know, share God with people. It's like, man, that's revolutionary. How can you do that? And so I remember during that time thinking, man, that's what I want to do. You know, I want to play music. I want to talk about God. I want to teach the Bible. I want to reach people right where they're at. I want to connect with the audience, and I want to share love and share hope, the hope that comes from a relationship with Jesus Christ. My Uncle Charles, he gave me this nylon guitar. You know, it was like a mariachi type guitar, and he's like, "Here, Neil, you know, take this." And I remember just being determined to learn whatever I could on that guitar. And then my buddy was like, he'd teach me a chord, and I go home and master it. And he'd teach me something else, and I master it. And then like the praise and worship band at church, you know, they needed a keyboard player, and I had also been dabbling on the keyboard also, like a little small, like, I don't know, it was like a Casio or something, man. And apparently I was just jamming on it, and next thing I know, I was like in the church band. And then I took some piano lessons from a lady at church, and it was like everything was just coming back, like just, I don't know, man. I was grabbing this, playing that, and singing and writing music. You know, it was like a gift from God, you know, because not everyone could sing, not everyone could play, you know. what's interesting with me is I can never go back and say, oh, I worked so hard at I worked for this and I did this. No, actually, I didn't do anything. I just surrendered my life to God, and like God just poured His gifts out on my life. He just boom, gave me all kinds of stuff, and then whatever He gave me, I just tried to be a good steward with it and just tried to do the best I could with what He gave me, and He just kept giving me more and more. It's even like that today. God keeps giving me, and then I just give it back to Him. Glorify God with it. Use it for His kingdom. Yeah, so my cousin Al Dog, he walked in on me playing my piano, and he just couldn't believe how quick I was learning. And it was just like, it was a miracle. God was blessing the gift. And then He was also allowing others to witness that. So that was kind of cool for them to see that as well.
That was my escape.
So I'm doing music, and then I start to, as I'm reading the Bible, I start having a desire to teach the Bible, and so with teaching the Bible, you gotta have an audience. So I had small cousins, my cousin Catherine, my cousin Jeremy, my cousin Sophia. They were all pretty small at the time, and they're all willing to jump in my car and head off to youth group, and so I started picking them up every single week, and sitting them down and just sharing what God, what I was learning. I started to share it with them, and they started enjoying it, and I tried to apply it to their young minds as much as I could, and I was still rough around the edges, so I was also learning, and so they were learning, I was learning, and I was also learning how to teach people and care about others. So as you know, as I'm teaching and being with my family each and every week, I'll never forget the day that I get the phone call, and it's kind of like time stopped. And I remember it was my aunt calling me to let me know that my cousin Sophia had died, had gotten in a horrible accident, and she was dead. And I didn't really know what to say. I mean, it was just like everything stops and you're kind of numb. I just hang up the phone and I'm thinking about it. I'm like, this is like one of my kids. I pick her up every week and we go to Bible study. I take her to church. We drive through Jack in the Box all the time. And we're eating those Jack in the Box tacos all the time with the little hot sauce. And I'll never do that again. She's so young. And having to cope with the loss of someone so close to you, it changes you. It gives you a reality of life and death. It gives you an appreciation for family. It gives you, it reminds you of that our time here on earth is short, and so we need to make sure that our minutes matter, and that we spend time with our family, we spend time with our loved ones, because one moment they might be here, one moment they might be gone. So we don't ever want to be in that place where we didn't get to say bye to them or anything like that. And so that's how I was feeling that day.
Crazy, man. And I remember like it was yesterday, bro. Like I got the call and I answered that call, and I was like, I didn't know what was going on, but I just, my aunt and Sylvia called and she goes, hey, let me like put your mom on the phone. And I go, okay. It didn't sound good. And I remember just my mom just saying her name, bro. She screamed her name and I was like, fuck. Like I knew she was gone.
Yeah. It was like,
I want to give people an idea of who she was, to you, and then also to, our family. Because I feel like, again, I don't think our family ever recovered.
Yeah, my cousin Sophia, she was like the spark in the room. She had a great personality. She was funny. She was fun. She was kind of you know, she had a way about her that just kind of brought a smile to your face. And so to lose someone like that and so young, and when you're not ready for it, it's like a punch to the gut. You know, it's like my uncle and my aunt now, they don't have their daughter anymore. And so, you know, it's a hard time for everyone. It's a hard time for our family. You know, you don't want to bring it up. You know, you don't want to keep talking about it a bunch. You want to allow them to heal, but then you know that the pain will always be there. You know, and that's how loss is. You know, the person is gone. So you have to find a new way to live when you lose a loved one. There's no other way around it. You have to find a kind of a new path there. And so, you know, the bad news is that it's hard, it's painful, but the good news is that there's a tremendous amount of growth that takes place. And if you allow the pain to do its work on you, you'll find yourself even reaching out to more family and becoming more compassionate toward the ones that are around you.
Talk about a funny story that you have about her, something that I could tell someone about, and they're just like, wow. Because I mean, there's so many stories I've heard about that girl. And what is a story though that you remember about her that you just think about, makes you laugh? You know, something that's gonna make our family just like, wow, I remember something that she would do, you know, or something.
Yeah, my cousin Sophia was a very funny person because I would pick her up, and then we'd be like driving down the road, and she's like, "Man, I'm really hungry. You know, I need some Jack in the Box tacos, Bob." And I'm like, well, you know, she goes, "You got any change in your ashtray?" And she's like digging in my ashtray. She goes, "You do have change in your ashtray." She goes, like, "Look it, I got one, look, two, dude, we got like 4 tacos right here. Come on, let's go, man." And I'm like, "No," I go, "Come on, man, we don't need tacos." She goes, "Yeah, we need tacos, Bob. We need them now." And she would like have a way to like convince me to drive into the Jack in the Box tacos, man. And so, you know, drive through to get the tacos, and I get them, and then you have to have the sauce, man. It's like the taco ain't the taco without the sauce. She's like, "No, you got to put the sauce on it, man." And I was like, "All right, I'll put the sauce on it." But you know, the cool thing now is that whenever I eat those tacos, which I still do, you know, and I put that little sauce on, man, I take it from my cousin, I crunch into it, I'm like, this is for my cousin that I love so much and I miss, you know, and so that's a good memory for me. You know, that's my memory of my cousin.
Yeah, man, she was so convincing, man. Like, I remember this time I stayed the night over at grandma's, and she goes, I'm gonna break out of here. And I go, wait, what? Like, we're like, dude, she had to be, well, she was like same age as me. She's only a couple weeks older than I am. So yeah, she's like, "I gotta break out of here, man. You gotta help me. You gotta do this." And I'm like, wait a second, I'm not gonna help you. Like, what are you talking about? Like, she's like, "Oh, some dude's gonna pick me up. We're gonna go to a club or something." And I'm like, "Sophia, just stay home. Like, I'm here. Like, let's just hang out." No. Help me through the window. Next thing you know, dude, I'm like part of the plan. I'm like, I'm helping her get out the window. She's like, "All right, help me get out of the fence." So you're helping her over the fence. "Hey, when I come back, make sure that you open the door. Make sure you're awake." I'm like, "Bro, I'm not gonna stay up all night waiting for you to come back." And she'd always figure out, like, it's just like all of a sudden you're in the whole plan, you know, like it's so crazy how convincing she was, you know. And it's like,
she's very mischievous in that.
Yeah, and you feel like bad. Like, she made you feel like, not in a mean way, but she made you feel like you have to, like, you have to help me. Like, there's no other way around it. Like, you're gonna help me.
Yeah, or I'm gonna be an accessory. Yeah, I'm gonna be an accessory to this.
Yeah. And then you just felt bad. You just felt bad if you didn't help her. Like, it's just a weird thing, but yeah.
So I'm at a church service, and I'm watching this service, and they have this like 20-piece band that's like performing that night, and it's like orchestrated, like worship gospel type music. So then they get done, and then at the very end, they're like, "Hey, you know what, man? We really need male vocalists. We're gonna have tryouts tonight. If any of you guys would be interested in joining one of our teams to travel around the world and sing with us." And then I remember just thinking, man, I don't know, man. I mean, it's not quite my style, but what the heck? I'm just gonna try out. So I waited, and I went up there at the very end. Guy was at the piano. He's like, "Hey, can you sing this?" And I sang a few bars for him. He's like, "Man, you sound really good." And I'm like, "Oh, thank you." And it's like, "Well, we'll be in touch with you." I was like, "Oh, okay." So I went home, and then like the very next day, I get a call, and they're like, "Hey, man, can you come and travel with us? We're gonna go on a 3.5-month trip, and we're gonna travel all through the U.S. We're gonna go overseas, and we need a vocalist." And I'm like, I guess. I go, "Can you give me like a day or two, man? I got a job, and I gotta make some moves." So then the next day, I go into my I was working in this factory, and I go to my boss's office. I'm like, "I gotta quit." He's like, "Why, Bobby?" I'm going to be a missionary. I'm leaving tomorrow. And you're like, "Okay, Bobby. Well, good luck, man." And I'm like, "All right." And so I jumped on a bus, and I headed out, and I traveled all throughout the U.S. I got to go to Madrid, Spain, and I've been to just about every state in the U.S. except Texas. I don't think I got to go to Texas. And but while I was on tour, when I was running mic cords with the band, the girl that was running mic cords with me would eventually be my future wife. That's actually how I met her. We were running chords. She was right there, and then we were singing and on stage, and she was like on the left side of me, this cute blonde, and that's how God brought us together. I wasn't looking for her. She wasn't looking for me. She didn't want anything to do with me, actually. It was all through prayer, and the Lord just like brought us together. We came off a tour, and I know it sounds crazy, but we came off a tour. We went right into premarital counseling, and we got married. And we've been married like almost 18 years now. So that's kind of our crazy God love story. She was like right there, man. That's how I met her. As we were traveling together, and of course, when you're traveling with the 20-piece band and you have a concert every single day, you're spending like 10 hours, like 10, 15 hours each day with each other. So you're growing quickly. And so I remember really getting to know Kelly and talking to her and communicating with her. Well, there's no when you're traveling with the team, there's no funny business. They don't allow you to do, be a couple. If they see you even getting close, like the guys, if they see you getting close to a girl, they immediately separate, because they imagine that will create tension with our ultimate job, which is to preach the gospel and be there for people all over the world. And so as soon as they saw us getting close, man, they broke us up. And so we actually ended up writing notes to each other. So I would write her a little note, and I would slip it behind the seat, and she'd grab it, and she'd write me one and slip it under. And then we did that for like a month or two. And somehow in that, I got to know her even more. And so, yeah, of course, when we came off tour, we knew that the Lord was calling us to be married to each other. I met her parents. She met mine. She was like, "You know what? I think we're called to be married, but I got to tell you, if my dad doesn't like you, I ain't marrying you." And I was like, "What?" She goes, "Yeah, if you want to marry me, you're going to have to ask permission." And I was like, "Are you crazy?" And her dad's like 6-something, he's like a general contractor, builds custom homes with his bare hands. I'm like, "Oh man, this is crazy." So I had to sit down the family, and I remember just looking them in the eye and saying, "I love your daughter. I will always take care of her. I don't care if I have to sell oranges on the side of the road. I don't have a job. I don't have a car. I don't have anything, but I love your daughter." And then somehow he believed me, and he gave me his blessing and a skill saw and a sawzall, Milwaukee sawzall too, and some other tools. But man, I never looked back on that. That's just been so cool to have the perfect person that could be your teammate in life. Of course, when we met each other, we were both performing music. She sings soprano, I sing tenor, and we sang together. And so it was appropriate for us on our wedding night. I wrote a song for her, I performed it. She wrote a song for me, she performed it. And it's like music was such a big part, and it's still a big part. You know, we had like a band, we had a couple bands playing at our wedding. It seemed like it was mainly music than anything else. I think the ceremony was like quick, and everything, like the music and the reception was like the long part. And so it's really cool to be able to share that with someone, because you know, music, it connects you, but man, in the realm of love, when you love a person and you're able to sing with them, that's just like a different level of love. So one of the things I love about my wife is, you know, she at the very beginning, she was always supportive, and I think that's important to, when you know, when you're marrying someone, or you know that God's calling you to marry someone in a relationship, you know, just knowing that you have someone that supports you, whatever you are, whatever career path it is. And so I think that is the glue that has kept us married together all these years. So, you know, as we moved around a bunch, at some point we left the city and we moved to the Inland Empire. We moved to Paris, California. That was kind of my parents' like escape route. You know, they were trying to get us away from the craziness of the city, and they saw how bad it was, and they wanted to get us away from that. And so growing up and living on a ranch where there was like nothing for like miles, that really kind of kept us out of trouble. It kept us, you know, from any major troubles from happening, because, you know, here we were kind of in a deserted place, chasing each other through the dirt fields and, you know, throwing sticks at each other, you know. How much harm could that really cause a person? So living on the ranch for the time, what was really neat about it is having the ability to have family over all the time. I mean, you could play your music as loud as you wanted. You could have your bonfires as high as you wanted them. You could stay up as late as you wanted. You could scream, yell. It didn't matter. But it was enough. It was far enough away from the city to where you could still have some peace. And I think we need that sometimes. We need to get away from the crazy city life and just get away with nature, and just kind of, you know, where there's not a bunch of noise, you know, where you could feel the wind blowing at night, look up into the stars and be like, wow, you know, this is cool. So moving to the ranch, I mean, that, you know, it changed our lives as kids, but I think it changed my dad's life, because you remember he had all these challenges, you know, with his accident and stuff. But, you know, as he's recuperating and he's able to walk again, he pretty much could work. So he's kind of in his retirement age, but he's working. So now he's driving his tractor around, he's cutting down stuff, man. He's maintaining the ranch, and he just kind of stayed there, and he found his peace on that ranch, and so that in itself was just so great to see my dad have that peace in his life, to be able to experience that living on a ranch.
There was a time, I don't know if I mentioned it to you. It was at Uncle Charles's. I show up to Uncle Charles's. He's like doing his thing, and like on his car, and then he goes, I go, hey man, how's Uncle Bob, dude? And he goes, I don't know, he's on his tractor, man. Why don't you go say what's up to him? I go, get the hell out of here, bro. I looked at him like, you're crazy, man. He goes, no, I'm serious. He's out there right now on his tractor. And I go, I look, I see like him, you know, doing the field, and I'm like, that's not him. He goes, that's him. So I go, okay. Dude, I'm like khakied out, like Dickies, like just khakied out, bro. Bandana, sunglasses. I walk out to the middle of the field. He's like way down there. I walk in the middle of the field, and I just see him like kind of turn around, like come around, and he just stopped. And I didn't say anything. I didn't say nothing, dude. I'm just standing there like this. And he's just like, and I'm in the middle of the field. So he's like, oh, fuck. Like, oh, man, I must have did something wrong, bro. Like, I don't know who this gangster dude is, because it was too far. Like, he couldn't see who I was. So then he goes, who the fuck are you? And I go, I didn't say anything. I let him just kind of like, what? You know, I can see him like, who are you? go, fucking Gabriel. He goes, who? I go, Gabriel. He goes, I don't know what the fuck you are. And I go, and he just starts like going towards me. And then I go, dude, I'm your nephew. And he goes, oh my God, bro, you scared the fuck out of me. Like, I thought I was gonna die, bro. I thought I was gonna die right now. I go, nah, you're good, man. I just had to scare you a little bit. He's like, oh man, dude. And I'm like, what the hell are you doing out here on the tractor? Like, but it was so cool to see him just like in his thing, you know, like that was like his getaway.
Yeah, so as he was driving his tractor around and he was taking care of these persimmon trees. You know, they had like persimmon trees growing all over the ranch. And so my dad was just kind of like, you know, mowing around them and keeping weeds down and watering them and trying to keep them alive. And he loved that tractor, man, and he kept it. Somehow it was an old tractor, but somehow he kept it running. And as far as I know, he's the only one that knew how to drive that tractor. I couldn't figure it out. I tried to figure it out. He's the only one that knew how to start it. That's all I knew. And he was good at driving it. He loved riding it all around the ranch. And so, but you know, with that, you know, towards the end of his life, as he's riding that tractor around, one of the last projects was that they were trimming trees around the ranch, and there was one tree that was kind of leaning over towards the house that they lived in. So what they did was they tied a rope to the tree and they had it tied to the tractor. And so as they cut the tree, my dad was going to pull the tractor and pull the tree away from the house so it didn't fall on the house. Well, as they cut it, it started to come down. He was on the tractor and he jumped off the tractor to, like, I don't know, try to straighten out the rope or do something. And he was literally like in the path of the tree. And the tree, just as it fell down, it just fell right on my dad. And it just hit him. He went unconscious. You know, my mom came running out. She tried to, you know, do like CPR on him. She tried to bring him back to life, and she couldn't. And so for my dad, he ended up dying on the tractors, doing something that he loved doing. And so, you know, that, you know, no one prepares for death. You know, I wasn't ready for that one. I thought he would be at least in the hospital, maybe, you know, cancer, or, you know, we all think that death is going to happen, you know, it's going to take time, and so you can kind of work up to it. But when somebody that you love suddenly dies, especially your hero, like my dad was my hero, you know, it's another good punch to the gut. And I know it really changed me, and it has really made me who I am today. You know, experiencing that.
Man, I mean, I love him, man, and I, even though again I didn't spend too much time with him, you know, the moments that I was with him was,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, man.
That's okay, bro.
I think it's just because when I think about him, I think about my dad.
Yeah.
And like, I don't know how I would handle it,
Yeah.
because, you know, you got one dad, you know, you got parents that it's tough, man. But yeah, that was really rough, man. And, you know, I know it really hurt my dad because they were so close, you know, even though they were distant, like I said, when they were together, it was like a fucking, like, it just, like I said, they finished each other's words. And even though they weren't around each other, like, it just was, it amazed me. Like, it really did. Like, I remember just being on the ranch one time. I'll never forget your dad. I had like these baggy pants on, man, and I'll never forget that. He goes, man, I don't understand you kids these days, bro. Like, you guys wear like these baggy pants, and there's just, you know, back in my day, you know, like, we wore tight pants, you know, so girls could see your booty, you know, like, and I was like, I go, what? He's like, he did like this pose, like he showed us, like, yeah, you know, like we get it tight, you know. That's why I like it tight, so girls can see what's going on right there. And like, I just,
like Freddie Mercury. Like
yeah, he did like a Freddie Mercury pose, and I just fucking died laughing, man. And I was just like, dude, this dude is so funny, man. And my dad's just like, I mean, it just like, man, I just had so much love for him. And sorry for breaking down right there, bro. But
no, that's fine, bro.
I was thinking about this time, and maybe you brought it up a little bit about your dad being your hero, and that's kind of what got me choked up. You know, I remember like in second grade, I remember the teacher came around, and you know, everyone loves like heroes, and she's like, who's your favorite hero, you know? And then I remember like, you know, Superman. One kid was like Spider-Man, and I'm like sitting there and I'm thinking like to myself, like, my hero is my dad. And I remember the teacher kept asking me like, well, who's your hero though? And I go, my dad. And then she goes, okay, like, why is he your hero? Why is your dad? Because no one in his classroom is saying that's your hero. And I said, you know, it's my dad because, you know, he's such a funny guy. And the way my dad just gets up in front of a room, and when he's comfortable, he just lights it up. Like, I've always appreciated that about my dad. You mentioned that your dad is your hero, and I wanted you to maybe elaborate on that. Like, you know, my dad's my hero, and the reason why.
Well, my dad is my hero, and the reason why he's my hero is because he's taught me so many things in life. He taught me how to work hard, take care of my family. One thing that he taught me, you know, he stayed with my mom like our entire life. And you know, they didn't have a perfect relationship. You know, no one does. I don't even have a perfect relationship with my wife. But he taught me just to persevere, you know, to hang in there, to make up, to work it out, to stay together. You know, they say that the family that prays together stays together. And I really believe that that's true. But one of the other things that my dad modeled for me is that every now and then he would kind of, you know, lose his cool. And what I mean by that is that, you know, maybe we would do something and we would really drop the ball. And so he would have to discipline us or whatever. And maybe he was a little bit too harsh in his verbal anger. And like, I remember a couple of times my dad coming afterwards, and after he cooled down, he said, you know what, son? He says, you know, what you did was wrong, and you know, it really upset me the way that you're treating your mom and stuff. You know, he goes, I just want to apologize for like the way I reacted. You know, I'm sorry that I lost my cool like that. And I know some people will look at that and be like, oh, you know, for a man to apologize to his kids, that's not a very manly trait. But I don't really see that as a weakness. You know, my dad is my hero because that is, you know, to me, that's a strength. That's a superpower. And now that I have 2 boys and I have a daughter, I could tell you, man, I've done that a bunch of times where I have like, you know, yeah, maybe they were, you know, maybe they did deserve a discipline, but, you know, I kind of got a little too overboard on it. You know, I got a little too upset. And so I had to say, you know what though, but, you know, I kind of lost my cool there, and I'm really sorry for getting that upset. And I thank my dad because he modeled that to me, and now that's something that I take into raising my kids and my family. And hopefully when my boys grow up and they, you know, they screw up as a dad, you know, we all make mistakes as parents. They will do that. They will follow that same example. You know, losing your father, it's always a hard thing. It becomes a reality when you actually see them in the coffin and then, you know, bury them. It's like a process because you start to miss them. You know, one of the things I miss about my dad is I miss his voice. You know, whenever I'd have a car problem or something in life that I needed my dad's touch on, I could call him and he could just tell me on the phone, hey, well, you need to try to do this, do that, you know. Or spontaneously, my dad would just call and say, hey, you know, how are you guys doing? How are the kids doing, you know? And he would like check up on me once in a while. And I miss that, man. I just miss hearing his voice. At the same time, though, as hard as that is, I also feel like there's a great responsibility on my life now. You know, my dad taught me everything he could while he was here. So, you know, as hard as it is to lose a father, or as hard as it is to lose a mother or a grandparent or any family member, you have to move on. You have to live life, and so it's important to, you know, take that baton, carry it, and move forward. Try to be the best. You know, try to make them proud. You know? Being a father now and having children is probably one of the greatest blessings in life. You know, just being able to pass on the things that you're learning and being able to grow. And of course, you know, we teach our kids, but our kids teach us so much. You know, and then just having my wife, you know, being there on my side, you know, she taught me so much over the years. But with all that, you know, it's really a benefit and a blessing being in a musical family, you know, because we could just bust out the guitar and sing together and play together, and, you know, be able to put on these Facebook Live concerts and harmonize and sing different parts and have fun. I love that. But then also being able to be a part of a church, and now having my own little small group of people that I pastor and I teach and I share with. That's been awesome. That's been life-changing. The best place to find me now, I mean, you could go to flamechapel.org. That's our website. Or you could look to Flame Chapel on Facebook or Flame Chapel on Instagram. Or actually, you could just look for Bobby Vargas on Instagram. I will post like encouraging messages, quotes, verses. Sometimes I do short videos, just video encouragements as well. I'm doing a Facebook Live every Sunday morning at 11 a.m. So if you go to Flame Chapel on Facebook, you can actually watch me live this Sunday. And I usually do that. I do a study at 9 a.m. too. So yeah, those are some places to look for. But yeah, I love doing this, man. And I wouldn't trade this for the world. I love what I do, and I'm so thankful to just, you know, be a tool in the hand of the Creator, you know, and being able to love my family and my friends, and being able to create music, sing, and do all these wonderful things. You're watching Universal Groove with Bobby Vargas. Peace out.